The episode opens in complete darkness, and it stays that way longer than you expect. No music, no opening visuals, nothing to ease you in. Just silence, heavy enough that it almost feels intentional, like the show wants you to sit with it for a moment. Then a single biwa string is plucked. The sound is low and deep, not sharp, not dramatic, but heavy, the kind of sound that feels like it sinks instead of echoing. The darkness doesn't disappear when it plays. It shifts. Space itself begins to twist, walls sliding sideways, floors rotating slowly as if gravity doesn't fully apply here. The Infinity Castle takes shape piece by piece, endless and disorienting, corridors overlapping in ways that make it impossible to tell where the center is. And yet, seated calmly within all that warped space, Muzan Kibutsuji is already there. He sits perfectly still, posture straight, hands resting on his knees, his expression smooth and unreadable. He doesn't look angry. He doesn't look tense. He looks like someone who expects the world to obey him without question. Below him, the upper-ranked demons kneel in silence. Every one of them keeps their head lowered, backs straight, bodies rigid. None of them dare to move. Another biwa string sounds, and Muzan's eyes shift slightly, just enough to make the entire castle feel tighter, as if the walls themselves are pressing inward. When he speaks, his voice is calm and flat. "You've failed." He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't repeat himself. The words land anyway. One demon digs their fingers into the floor without realizing it. Another clenches their jaw, teeth grinding silently. Muzan rises to his feet, and the moment he stands, the air grows heavy, thick with pressure. He looks down at them, not with rage, but with disappointment, and somehow that feels far worse. "Upper moons aren't meant to fall," he says, pausing just long enough for the silence to become unbearable. And yet they did. Brief images flash through his mind, demons turning to ash, crimson blades cutting cleanly through flesh, humans refusing to die even when they should have. His expression barely changes, but his fingers curl slightly. "Humans are adapting," he continues. "That will not continue." He steps forward, the sound of his foot echoing unnaturally through the castle. "Find the Hashira," he orders quietly. "Crush them before they're ready." His eyes glow faintly red as he adds, "This era is almost over." The biwa sound stops abruptly, and the darkness swallows everything. Light rushes in all at once. Morning sunlight spills across a quiet forest road, peaceful and still, leaves swaying gently as birds scatter at the sound of footsteps. Tanjiro walks forward at a steady pace, posture straight, breathing controlled, calm on the surface but clearly alert. His Hanafuda earrings sway lightly with each step. He takes a deep breath, grounding himself in the smell of trees and dirt, but beneath that calm there's a subtle pressure, like something far away has begun to move. Up ahead, Inosuke suddenly leaps onto a rock, throwing his arms wide as he laughs loudly. "This is nothing," he shouts, full of confidence as always. Behind them, Zenitsu is already struggling, bent over with his hands on his knees. "Hey, slow down," he complains between breaths. "Why does every walk turn into training?" Tanjiro turns back and smiles at him, warm and genuine, the kind of smile meant to reassure, but when he faces forward again, it fades. His eyes sharpen slightly, instincts quietly telling him that this calm won't last. The wind shifts, rustling the leaves, and a Kasugai crow drops onto a branch nearby, wings flapping sharply. "All Hashira, emergency assembly," it calls out. Tanjiro stops immediately. He doesn't panic. He doesn't hesitate. He just freezes for a moment, his heart hitting hard once in his chest. The Abuyashiki estate appears as tranquil as ever, clean paths and soft wind giving it an almost sacred calm, but the tension is unmistakable. The Hashira are already gathered, not standing together casually, but spaced apart, each one solid and unmoving. Gyomei towers over everyone, eyes closed, prayer beads sliding steadily through his hands, his calm expression weighed down by something unspoken. Sanemi stands with his arms crossed, jaw clenched, scars catching the light as his eyes remain sharp and restless. Ju stands slightly apart from the others, silent and distant, his expression unreadable. Mitsuri fidgets nervously, forcing a gentle smile that doesn't quite hide the worry in her eyes. When Kaguya steps forward, moving slowly and carefully, the atmosphere shifts instantly. His voice is soft, but it carries. Musen Kibutsuji has begun to move. The weight of those words settles heavily over everyone present. The final battle is approaching, he continues. Tanjiro swallows. If we are to survive, Kaguya says, we must become stronger than ever before. He pauses briefly, then delivers the final decision. The Hashira training will begin. No one speaks. No one argues. Everyone understands what this truly means. Tanjiro clenches his fists at his sides, feeling the reality of it sink in. This isn't just preparation anymore. This is the path toward the end. Morning comes without any warning. There's no sense of easing into it, no calm before anything starts. The training grounds are already wide open and quiet, stretched out under the sky in a way that makes everyone standing there feel exposed. Tanjiro stops at the edge for just a second, shoulders squared, jaw tight, taking one slow breath as if he's trying to lock his resolve in place before stepping forward. His body still aches from everything that came before, and he knows this isn't about warming up or finding a rhythm. This is about seeing how much he can take. Tengen Yuzui stands in front of him with his arms crossed, posture relaxed, eyes sharp and focused. He looks Tanjiro up and down, then lets out a short breath that almost sounds amused. So you're Kamadu, he says casually. Tanjiro bows deeply. Yes, sir. That's all the exchange they get. The next moment, Tengen snaps his fingers and says, run. Tanjiro's feet move instantly. No countdown, no explanation, just full speed from the start. At first, Tanjiro keeps his breathing under control, counting it in his head the way he always does. The ground rushes past beneath his feet. The air feels sharp in his lungs. Then the burn starts creeping into his legs, slow but heavy, settling deeper with every step. His pace doesn't change, but it takes more effort to keep it steady. When the weights are suddenly dropped onto his shoulders, the impact forces a grunt out of him and his knees dip hard enough that it feels like the ground is trying to pull him down. His vision blurs for a split second. He clenches his teeth, tightens his grip on himself, and forces his body upright. Sweat drips down his face and hits the dirt. Every step after that feels delayed, like his body is a half second behind his will, but stopping never even enters his mind. Somewhere behind him, Tengen speaks again, calm and clear. If you fall behind, you start over. Tanjiro doesn't answer. He just keeps running. Tengen watches silently after that, eyes following every movement, not offering praise or insults, letting Tanjiro's endurance speak for itself. Elsewhere on the grounds, the air feels colder. Thick mist rolls across the ground, swallowing distance and muffling sound until the world feels smaller and more dangerous. Muichiro Tokito stands within it, completely still, his expression blank, eyes unfocused like his thoughts are drifting somewhere far away. The trainees around him shift nervously, breaths shallow, hands tightening around their swords without realizing it. The silence stretches, heavy and uncomfortable. Then Muichiro moves. There's no warning, no change in his expression. His blade flashes forward and stops inches from someone's face, close enough that they flinch as the sound of steel slicing the air follows a heartbeat later. Someone gasps sharply. Muichiro stops and looks at them. Too slow, he says, his voice flat, almost bored. He steps closer, the mist parting around him, and another flash of steel stops at someone's throat. The cold presses close enough to make their entire body freeze. Muichiro speaks again, just as calmly. If you think about it, he says, you die. He steps back immediately after, already losing interest, as if the lesson is over the moment it's delivered. In another area, Mitsuri Kanroji leads her training with a gentle smile and a soft voice, her movements fluid and graceful as she demonstrates stretches that look harmless at first glance. Try to relax, she says cheerfully. Follow my pace. The pain hits fast and without mercy. Muscles strain past their limits, and cries slip out as bodies struggle to keep up. Someone collapses halfway through a movement. For just a moment, Mitsuri's smile falters, worry flashing across her face as she looks at them. Then she steadies herself and claps her hands lightly. "You're doing great," she says. "Follow my pace." The pain hits fast and without mercy. Muscles strain past their limits, and cries slip out as bodies struggle to keep up. Someone collapses halfway through a movement. For just a moment, Mitsuri's smile falters, worry flashing across her face as she looks at them. Then she steadies herself and claps her hands lightly. "You're doing great," she says. "Follow my pace." The pain hits fast and without mercy. Muscles strain past their limits, and cries slip out as bodies struggle to keep up. Someone collapses halfway through a movement. For just a moment, Mitsuri's smile falters, worry flashing across her face as she looks at them. Then she steadies herself and claps her hands lightly. "You're doing great," she says. "Follow my pace." The pain hits fast and without mercy. Muscles strain past their limits, and cries slip out as bodies struggle to keep up. Someone collapses halfway through a movement. For just a moment, Mitsuri's smile falters, worry flashing across her face as she looks at them. The episode opens with a quiet morning, the kind that feels almost fake in how calm it is. The training grounds are empty, covered in soft light as the sun slowly rises. Tanjiro walks forward alone, footsteps steady against the dirt. His shoulders are stiff, his body still sore from everything that's happened, but his eyes are alert. He stops near the center of the grounds and lets out a slow breath, resting one hand on the hilt of his sword. "Okay," he murmurs under his breath, more to steady himself than anything else. "I can do this." The air shifts slightly, and a calm voice speaks behind him. "You're already tense." Tanjiro turns quickly and sees Ju Tomioka standing a short distance away, posture relaxed, expression as unreadable as ever. Tanjiro straightens immediately and bows. "Good morning, Tomioka-san." Ju nods once, barely. "Draw your sword," he says. "We're starting now." There's no explanation of what the training will be, no rules laid out. Just steps forward and moves without warning, his blade slicing cleanly through the air. Tanjiro barely reacts in time, raising his sword to block. The impact sends a sharp shock through his arms, making his fingers sting. He grits his teeth and steadies his stance. Ju doesn't look impressed. "You reacted," he says calmly, "but you were late." Tanjiro swallows hard. "Yes." Ju raises his sword again. Again. They clash once more, steel ringing out sharply in the quiet morning. Tanjiro's breathing starts to grow uneven as he struggles to match Ju's pace. Each strike feels faster than the last, like he's constantly trying to catch up to something already moving ahead of him. He just suddenly stops mid-motion, his blade hovering inches from Tanjiro's neck. Tanjiro freezes completely, heart slamming in his chest. A bead of sweat rolls down his face. "If this were a real fight," Ju says quietly, "you'd be dead." Tanjiro nods, voice tight. "I understand." Ju pulls his sword back without another word and turns away. Again. Tanjiro exhales shakily and forces his body to move. His legs feel heavy, his arms slow, but he keeps going. With every exchange, his timing improves just a little, though the gap between them is still obvious. The scene cuts across the training grounds in short, sharp moments. Sanemi's voice echoes loudly as he shoves a trainee back to their feet. "You think demons wait for you to recover?" he snaps. "Move." The trainee stumbles forward, barely keeping balance. Abanai stands nearby, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. "If you can't follow orders instantly, he says coldly, you'll die instantly. In another area, Mitsuri kneels beside someone who's collapsed, gently placing a hand on their shoulder. You're not weak, she says softly. Your body just isn't used to this yet. Don't give up, okay? Even as she smiles, there's worry in her eyes. Back with Ju, Tanjiro stumbles after another clash and drops to one knee, gasping for air. Sweat drips from his chin and darkens the dirt below. His hands shake as he tries to push himself back up. I'm sorry, he says between breaths. Ju looks down at him, expression unchanged. Don't apologize, he replies. Apologies won't save you. Tanjiro clenches his fists. Then, what should I do? Ju pauses for a moment, eyes fixed on Tanjiro. Stop waiting, he says. You keep trying to confirm what's coming next. That hesitation will get you killed. Tanjiro's eyes widen slightly as the words sink in. He remembers moments in battle where he was just a step too slow. He tightens his grip on his sword. Then I'll move first, he says quietly. He just studies him for a brief moment, then nods. Show me. They clash again, faster this time. Tanjiro still can't keep up completely, but this time he moves without stopping to think. His body acts on instinct, even when it hurts. When Ju finally lowers his sword, Tanjiro nearly collapses again, catching himself just in time. That's enough for today, Ju says. Tanjiro exhales heavily, relief mixing with exhaustion. Thank you, he mutters. Ju turns away, looking toward the horizon. Rest while you can, he says. This training hasn't really started yet. As the sun dips lower, Tanjiro sits on the ground, staring up at the sky, chest rising and falling heavily. His entire body aches, but his eyes are steady, filled with quiet resolve. The calm morning is gone now, replaced by a heavy sense of what's coming. Somewhere far away, unseen and unmoving, the pressure of the approaching battle continues to build. The episode opens on Tanjiro's face. Close up. Sweat runs down his temple, dripping off his chin as his breath comes out rough and uneven. His eyes are focused, but there's strain in them, the kind you can't hide. The camera pulls back to reveal the training grounds already in chaos. Dozens of bodies are moving at once, feet slamming into the dirt, shoulders hunched forward, some trainees barely managing to stay upright. Someone coughs hard nearby, another stumbles, but no one stops. Tanjiro runs near the front of the group, arms pumping, chest burning every time he inhales. His legs feel heavy, like they're wrapped in weights, but he keeps pushing forward, jaw clenched tight. Sanemi Shinazugawa suddenly spins around mid-run, his face twisted into a sharp grin that looks half angry, half amused. That's it, he shouts, eyes wide and blazing. You call this running? He kicks the ground hard, dust exploding up into the air. Move. A trainee near the back trips, hands flailing as he nearly falls flat on his face. Sanemi is on him instantly, grabbing the back of his uniform and yanking him upright. The trainee's eyes are wide with panic, lips trembling. You don't get to stop, Sanemi snarls. Demons won't wait for you to feel ready. The trainee nods frantically, swallowing hard, and forces his legs to move again. Tanjiro glances sideways for just a split second, his brows pulling together. Sanemi notices immediately. His eyes snap to Tanjiro. Eyes front, he barks. That half second of pity gets you killed. Tanjiro's expression tightens. Yes, he shouts back, pushing himself harder even as pain shoots up his legs. The running finally ends, and several trainees nearly collapse where they stand. For a brief moment, there's hope until they see what's next. Massive stones lie scattered across the grounds, each one looming and immovable. Tanjiro's eyes widen slightly as he swallows. Gyomei Himajima stands among them, towering and still, hands pressed together in prayer. Tears stream steadily down his face, catching the light. His expression is calm, almost gentle, but the weight of his presence makes the air feel thick. He opens his eyes just a little. Lift, he says softly. Tanjiro steps forward, placing his hands against the stone. The surface is cold and rough. He exhales and pushes. Nothing happens. His arms begin shaking almost immediately, muscles burning deep and slow. His teeth grind together as his face twists with effort. Again, Gyomai says quietly. Tanjiro adjusts his stance, feet digging into the dirt, shoulders straining as he pushes harder. The stone scrapes forward slightly with a harsh sound. Tanjiro's eyes widen in surprise, then narrow with determination as he keeps pushing. Even as his vision starts to blur nearby, Abanayiguro watches silently, arms crossed, eyes sharp and unblinking. His gaze flicks between trainees like a blade. Your posture is sloppy, he says suddenly, his voice cold. The trainee stiffens, face paling, and corrects themselves instantly. Abanai's eyes slide toward Tanjiro. You're relying too much on brute force, he adds. Your balance is breaking. Tanjiro nods quickly, sweat dripping down his nose. Understood, he says, though his arms are trembling violently now. In another section, Mitsuri Kanroji leads flexibility training. She smiles brightly, but there's tension in her eyes. Okay, breathe with me, she says gently, demonstrating a stretch that looks impossible. Someone cries out and collapses halfway through. Mitsuri gasps softly and rushes over, kneeling beside them. Hey, hey, she says, voice warm and reassuring as she places a hand on their shoulder. Look at me. You're okay. The trainee's face is red with pain and embarrassment. Mitsuri smiles, but when she looks back up at the others, her smile wavers for just a moment before she forces it back at the stones. Tanjiro's strength finally gives out. His hands slip. His legs buckle. He drops to one knee with a sharp gasp, palms digging into the dirt. His vision tunnels, the noise around him fading until all he can hear is his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. A shadow falls over him. Sanemi looks down at him, head tilted, eyes sharp. Already done, he asks, lips curling into a crooked grin. Tanjiro lifts his head slowly. His face is flushed, eyes glassy, but there's still fire in them. No, he says hoarsely. He pushes himself up, legs shaking violently, nearly collapsing again before catching himself. Sanemi watches him closely, expression unreadable for a moment. Then he clicks his tongue. You've got guts, he mutters. Don't waste them. Time drags on. Muscles scream. Bodies shake. Gyomai remains steady, Sanemi keeps pushing, Abanai keeps watching without mercy. Tanjiro moves on instinct now, his face set, eyes burning with quiet resolve. Between breaths, memories flash through his mind, Nezuko's smile, fallen comrades, promises he swore to keep. His jaw tightens. I won't fall behind, he whispers to himself. As the sun begins to set, the training finally slows. Trainees collapse across the grounds, staring blankly at the sky. Tanjiro sits heavily on the dirt, shoulders slumped, chest rising and falling unevenly. His entire body aches, but his eyes are steady as he looks toward the Hashira. His hands tremble as he clenches them into fists. No matter how heavy this gets, he says quietly, I'll keep going. The episode cuts to darkness. Deep within the Infinity Castle, Muzan sits alone, fingers resting against his cheek. His eyes narrow slightly as a biwa string echoes through the void. A faint smile curves his lips. Good, he murmurs. Let them break themselves. The sound lingers as the screen fades to black. The episode opens with the sound of breathing. Not one person, many. Slow, rough, uneven breaths filling the training grounds as morning light begins to creep in. Tanjiro sits on the dirt, shoulders slightly hunched forward, arms resting on his thighs. His hands are still shaking. Not badly, but enough that he notices. He stares at them for a long moment, brows pulling together, then slowly curls his fingers into fists. His jaw tightens as pain flares up his arms. Around him, other trainees are barely moving. Some lie flat on their backs, eyes half open, staring at the sky like they forgot why they're there. Others sit slumped forward, heads hanging low. No one talks. Even the usual sounds of the forest feel distant. Tanjiro exhales slowly and pushes himself up. His knees buckle instantly. His eyes widen in surprise, panic flashing across his face for just a second. He catches himself, feet sliding slightly in the dirt, shoulders shaking as he forces his balance to hold. He swallows hard. "I'm okay," he mutters, more to convince himself than anyone else. A sharp whoosh cuts through the air. Tanjiro barely reacts in time. He jerks backward as a wooden sword stops inches from his face. His heart jumps, eyes snapping into focus. Tomioka stands in front of him, posture relaxed, blade steady. His expression is calm, almost distant. "Your guard was down," Ju says evenly. No anger. No disappointment. Just fact. Tanjiro bows his head slightly, breath still uneven. "Yes." Ju raises his sword again without another word. Again. They begin with short exchanges. Wood meets wood in quick, controlled strikes. Tanjiro moves carefully, but his body is clearly lagging behind his instincts. His shoulders are stiff. His footing is just a little off. Sweat starts dripping down his face almost immediately. Ju steps in close, stopping Tanjiro's blade mid-swing. "You're late," he says. Tanjiro clenches his teeth. "I know." Ju doesn't move. Knowing doesn't fix it. They resume. Tanjiro pushes harder, breathing growing louder. His eyes narrow with focus, but there's frustration there too. He overcorrects, swinging too wide. Just steps aside effortlessly, tapping Tanjiro's wrist with his blade. Tanjiro winces, shaking his hand slightly. Ju watches him closely. "You're forcing speed," he says. "Your body can't keep up." Tanjiro exhales sharply. "If I slow down, I'll fall behind." Ju pauses, looking at him. "You already are," he replies calmly. The scene shifts briefly. Mist rolls across another part of the grounds. Muichiro Tokito stands motionless within it, eyes unfocused, expression empty. A trainee approaches carefully, hands trembling around their sword. They hesitate, then charge. In a blink, Muichiro disappears. The camera snaps behind the trainee. Muichiro's blade rests lightly against their neck. The trainee freezes, breath caught, eyes wide. "Too loud," Muichiro says flatly. He steps away, already losing interest, swallowing his figure nearby. Abanai Iguro observes silently, arms crossed. His eyes track every movement. "Your tension is obvious," he says coldly to a trainee. "Demons will see it." The trainee stiffens and nods quickly. Abanai's gaze flicks toward Tanjiro and Ju. His eyes narrow slightly. "That kid's hanging by a thread," he mutters aback with Ju. Tanjiro's breathing turns ragged. Sweat drips from his chin, splashing into the dirt. His wrist trembles again, pain flaring sharply this time. His grip slips. Just for a second, but it's enough. Ju stops immediately. "Enough." Tanjiro freezes, chest heaving. "Sir?" Ju lowers his sword. "If you keep pushing like this," he says quietly, "you'll break before the real fight even starts." Tanjiro looks down at his hands. They're shaking badly now. His brows knit together, frustration twisting into fear. His lips part slightly as if he wants to argue, but no words come out. For a moment, he looks lost. Then he clenches his fists hard, nails digging into his palms. "Then what am I supposed to do?" he asks, voice low and strained. Ju answers without hesitation. "Hold back." Tanjiro looks up, surprised. Ju meets his gaze. "Endurance isn't about pushing until you collapse," he continues. "It's about surviving long enough to matter." Later, Mitsuri leads breathing drills nearby. Her smile is gentle, but her eyes are serious. "Slow your breathing," she says softly. "Feel where your balance is." Tanjiro follows along, eyes closed, sweat running down his face. "Inhale." Exhale. His shoulders slowly lower. The shaking doesn't stop, but it becomes controlled. As the sun begins to set, the training grounds quiet again. Tanjiro stands alone at the edge, staring at the fading light. He flexes his fingers slowly. Pain pulses through them, but they respond. His face is exhausted, eyes heavy, but there's steadiness there now. "I'll last," he whispers. "No matter how heavy this gets." The episode cuts to the Infinity Castle. Muzan walks through the shifting halls, footsteps echoing unnaturally. He pauses, eyes narrowing slightly. "They're learning restraint," he murmurs. "That could be dangerous." A biwa string echoes as the screen fades to black. The episode opens with the sound of wood colliding over and over again, sharp and violent, echoing across the training grounds without pause. There's no announcement, no countdown, no easing into it. Everyone is already moving, already struggling to keep up. Tanjiro barely blocks a strike in time, the impact rattling his arms so hard his fingers almost go numb. His boots slide backward through the dirt, leaving uneven tracks behind him. His breathing is loud now, too loud, chest rising fast as sweat runs down his face and into his eyes, blurring his vision just enough to make everything feel dangerous. Sanemi Shinazugawa moves through the chaos like he belongs in it. His wooden sword rests loosely on his shoulder, posture relaxed, but his eyes miss nothing. "Closer," he shouts. "Why are you backing up? You scared?" He suddenly steps in, swinging down with brutal force. One trainee reacts half a second too late and gets slammed straight into the ground. The sound of the impact is dull and heavy. Dust explodes upward as the trainee rolls, coughing violently, trying to suck air back into their lungs. Sanemi stops right in front of them, looking down with a grin that's all teeth and no warmth. "You froze," he says casually. "That's not bad luck. That's weakness." The trainees' arms shake as they try to push themselves up, failing twice. Sanemi crouches slightly, lowering his voice. "In a real fight," he adds, "you wouldn't get a second try." Tanjiro stiffens where he stands. His grip tightens around his sword until his knuckles turn white. His jaw clenches, and for a moment his body leans forward on instinct. He catches himself and stays put. Sanemi's head snaps toward him immediately. "What?" Sanemi growls. "You got something you want to say?" Tanjiro straightens, forcing his shoulders back. "No," he answers, voice steady but thin. Sanemi stares at him for a long second, then smirks. "Good. Then don't waste my time." The pace only gets worse. Sanemi pushes them harder, forcing close combat, no room to breathe, no chance to reset. Tanjiro moves mostly on instinct now, block, pivot, step back, but his thoughts lag just enough to scare him. His arms feel heavier with every swing, muscles burning, grip slipping no matter how hard he tries to hold on. Sanemi suddenly steps right into his space, knocking Tanjiro's sword aside effortlessly. Before Tanjiro can react, Sanemi's blade is already there, stopping inches from his throat. The world seems to freeze. Tanjiro's breath catches painfully, chest tightening as he stares at the wooden sword hovering so close he can feel its presence. Sanemi leans in, grin gone, eyes sharp and serious. "You flinched," he says quietly. "Why?" Tanjiro swallows, throat dry. "I was thinking," he admits. Sanemi's expression hardens instantly. "That's the problem," he snaps. "Thinking gets you killed." He shoves Tanjiro back hard enough to send him stumbling, boots scraping loudly against the dirt as he barely keeps his balance. The scene shifts, but the pressure doesn't fade. Gyomei Himojima stands in silence, hands pressed together in prayer, tears streaming steadily down his face. He doesn't move. He doesn't raise his voice. Somehow, that makes it worse. The air around him feels heavy, almost crushing. Thick weighted logs lie on the ground in front of the trainees. "Lift them," Gyomei says gently. His voice is calm, steady, almost kind. "And walk." Tanjiro steps forward without hesitation and hoists one end of a log onto his shoulder. The weight hits him instantly like a blow. His knees buckle, his back arches slightly as pain shoots through his body. A sharp breath escapes him before he can stop it. Slowly, Gyomei continues. Endure. Tanjiro takes one step. Then another. His vision blurs at the edges, breathing turning shallow and uneven. Sweat drips from his chin, splashing onto the dirt below. His shoulders scream with every movement. A trainee beside him lets out a strained cry and collapses, the log slipping from their grasp. Tanjiro flinches, but he doesn't stop. His jaw clenches so hard it trembles, eyes fixed straight ahead as if looking anywhere else might break his focus completely. Abanai Iguro watches from the side, arms crossed tightly. Your center is off, he says sharply. Tanjiro adjusts instinctively, nearly dropping the log before forcing himself to correct it. Pain tears through his arms and back. Abanai nods once. Better, he mutters. But don't let them see it. Later, Mitsuri Kanroji works with a small group on breathing and recovery. Her usual cheerful tone is quieter now, more careful. Inhale, she says softly. Slow. Don't fight your breath. Tanjiro follows her lead, eyes closed, shoulders slowly lowering as his breathing steadies just enough to stop shaking. The pain doesn't disappear, but it becomes manageable. Mitsuri watches him closely. You're pushing yourself really hard, she says. Tanjiro opens his eyes and gives a small nod. I have to, he replies. There's no hesitation in his voice. Back with Sanemi, the sun is already sinking low, casting long shadows across the ground. Tanjiro's movements are slower now, exhaustion obvious in every step. Sanemi notices immediately and presses harder, attacking faster, forcing Tanjiro back again and again. Tanjiro blocks one strike, then another, but his grip finally gives out. Sanemi knocks the sword clean out of his hands. It skids across the dirt and comes to a stop far away. Tanjiro stands there unarmed, chest heaving violently, hands shaking at his sides. Sanemi stops inches from him, staring him down. You're done, he says flatly. Tanjiro shakes his head. Not yet. His voice cracks, raw and strained, but his eyes stay locked on Sanemi's. Sanemi studies him for a long moment, something unreadable flickering across his face before he scoffs. You're breaking, he says. But you're still standing. He steps back. That's the only reason you're alive. Night falls. Training ends. Bodies collapse across the grounds. Tanjiro sinks down into the dirt, shoulders slumping forward as he stares at his hands, shaking uncontrollably. His breathing slowly calms, but the exhaustion runs deeper than his muscles. He closes his eyes. Images flash through his mind: Nezuko, fallen comrades, promises he refuses to let go of. His jaw tightens. I won't stop, he whispers. Deep inside the Infinity Castle, Muzan stands alone, listening. His eyes narrow slightly, lips curling into a faint smile. They're cracking, he murmurs. Good. A biwa string echoes through the darkness as the walls shift. Episode 6 begins before sunrise. The sky is still dark, washed in cold blue-gray tones, and a thin layer of mist clings low to the ground. The camera glides slowly across the empty training field, passing scattered weapons and footprints from the night before finally settling on Tanjiro, sitting alone at the far edge of the grounds. He's hunched forward slightly, elbows resting on his knees, wrapping his hands in fresh cloth. His movements are careful, almost hesitant, like he's afraid of hurting himself if he pulls too tight. When the cloth tightens around his fingers, his hand trembles. He stops, the camera pushes in close on his palm. Small cuts. Red, irritated skin. His fingers curl and uncurl once, slowly. Tanjiro exhales through his nose, long and controlled, but there's strain behind it. They're shaking again, he thinks. His jaw tightens. It's fine. Just don't think about it. If I think, I'll hesitate. He finishes tying the wrap and stands. For a split second, his knee buckles. It's subtle, barely visible, but Tanjiro notices. His eyes narrow, annoyed at himself. The silence shatters. Line up. Sanemi's voice cuts through the mist, sharp and rough. The camera snaps toward him emerging from the fog, posture loose but aggressive, eyes wide, and alert like an animal that hasn't slept. Now. No one questions it. Training starts immediately. No warm-up. No explanation. The camera shakes slightly as wooden swords crash together at close range, the sound echoing again and again. Tanjiro blocks an incoming strike, but the impact sends a sharp jolt up his arm. His wrist screams in protest. He grits his teeth and shifts his stance, a fraction too slow. Sanemi sees it. The camera cuts to Sanemi's eyes, narrowed, irritated. "You're late," he says, stepping in and slamming his sword into Tanjiro's guard. "Your body moved after your brain." Another strike. Harder. Tanjiro staggers back half a step, breath catching. His chest tightens. "I blocked it," he tells himself. "So why does it feel like I didn't?" Sanemi doesn't give him time to recover. "Effort doesn't save you," Sanemi snarls. "Only instinct does." Sanemi suddenly closes the distance, knocking Tanjiro's sword aside with brutal ease. In one smooth motion, his blade stops inches from Tanjiro's throat. Everything drops into silence. The camera freezes on Tanjiro's face, eyes wide, pupils trembling slightly, breath caught halfway in. He can feel the presence of the blade without it touching him. Sanemi leans in, voice low. "You flinched." Tanjiro swallows. His throat feels raw. "I was thinking," he admits. Sanemi's expression hardens. "That's your mistake," he snaps. "Thinking gets you killed." He shoves Tanjiro back hard. Tanjiro stumbles, boots scraping loudly against the dirt as he barely keeps his balance, chest heaving. The scene cuts sharply. Gyomei's training ground feels completely different, quiet, heavy, almost sacred. The camera stays wide. Gyomei stands perfectly still, hands pressed together in prayer, tears streaming steadily down his face. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't move. That somehow makes it worse. Weighted stones lie scattered across the ground. Tanjiro lifts one onto his shoulder. The weight crashes down instantly. His back bends under it. His knees shake violently. His breath escapes in a sharp gasp before he can stop it. Too heavy, his mind says immediately. He hates the thought. Slowly, Gyomei says gently. "Endure." Tanjiro takes a step. Then another. Each movement feels like dragging his body forward by force. His vision blurs. Black spots creep in at the edges. Sweat runs down his face, dripping onto the dirt. A trainee beside him collapses with a strained cry, the stone rolling off with a heavy thud. Tanjiro flinches. The camera cuts close to his eyes. Hesitation flickers there for half a second. "Don't look," he tells himself. "If you stop, you won't start again." He keeps walking. Abanai watches from the side, arms crossed tightly, eyes sharp. "Your center is off," he says. Tanjiro tries to adjust. Pain explodes through his shoulders and spine. His mouth opens, breath breaking unevenly, but he forces his body back into alignment. Abanai nods once. "Better," he mutters. "Hide the pain." Tanjiro almost laughs at that, but there's no air left in his lungs. A brief break follows, barely enough to matter. Mitsuri approaches Tanjiro, crouching slightly to meet his eye level. The camera softens. Her expression is worried now, not bright. "You're not healing," she says quietly. "You're just pushing damage deeper." Tanjiro wipes sweat from his face, hands still shaking. He gives a tired smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. "If I stop," he says, voice low, "I'm scared I won't move again." Mitsuri hesitates, lips parting, then closing again. She doesn't argue. She knows training resumes this time. Tanjiro's body starts to fail him openly. His reactions lag. His blocks come late. Sanemi notices immediately and attacks harder, faster, merciless. A strike knocks Tanjiro off balance. Another sends his sword flying from his hands. It skids across the ground and stops far away. Tanjiro drops to one knee without meaning to, palms slamming into the dirt to steady himself. The world spins. His breathing turns ragged, desperate, like he's gasping underwater. Sanemi stands over him, expression unreadable. "That's it," he says flatly. "Your body quit." Tanjiro tries to stand. His leg gives out instantly. He collapses forward, barely catching himself. His hands shake violently, fingers digging into the dirt. "Not yet," he whispers, voice cracking. Inside his head, images overlap: Nezuko smiling, blood on snow, promises made through tears. "I can't stop," he thinks desperately. "If I stop, everything I fought for stops with me." Gyomei steps in at last, his massive presence filling the frame. "Enough," he says gently. Sanemi clicks his tongue but steps back. Tanjiro finally collapses fully, chest heaving, eyes unfocused. Mitsuri kneels beside him, placing a steady hand on his shoulder. "You did enough," she whispers. Tanjiro barely hears her. His vision fades in and out. His fingers curl weakly into the dirt. The final scene cuts far away, inside the Infinity Castle. Muzan walks slowly through shifting corridors, expression calm, almost bored. He stops, listening. A faint smile touches his lips. "Good," he murmurs. "They're pushing past their limits." His eyes darken. That's when they break. The episode opens in near darkness. Pre-dawn light barely penetrates the mist that clings to the training grounds. The camera glides slowly over discarded weapons, bandaged hands, footprints pressed into the damp earth. Every detail is captured: a scuffed boot, a thin line of blood on a glove, the slight tremor of a wooden post swaying in the wind. The silence is heavy, almost oppressive, broken only by distant rustling leaves. Tanjiro sits alone at the edge of the field, his back against a post. His posture is forced, shoulders rigid. The camera moves in close, catching the subtle tremor in his jaw, the tightness in his lips, the faint quiver of his eyelids. His hands are wrapped in worn cloth, fingers slightly swollen and red from repeated training. He flexes them slowly, noticing the stiffness, the pain that refuses to leave. "If I relax, I won't get back up," he thinks. He swallows, exhales slowly, and forces himself upright. His legs wobble. The camera focuses on the faint shake of his knees. "Stay steady. Just move." Suddenly, the silence shatters. "Line up." Abanai's voice cuts sharp through the mist. The camera swings to him emerging from the fog. Eyes narrowed, shoulders squared, body a perfect balance of tension and readiness. "No excuses. Start." The trainees immediately obey. There's no warm-up, no explanation, just the relentless rhythm of swords clashing. The camera follows Tanjiro closely. He raises his sword, blocks a rapid strike, pivots, blocks again. Each clash sends shockwaves through his arms, reverberates up his spine. His muscles scream in protest. Sweat drips into his eyes. His breathing is tight, shallow. One step falters. Abanai notices immediately. "You moved after your mind," Abanai says quietly. "Again." Tanjiro repeats the block. His legs shake violently. His mind races. "I've done this 1,000 times, why now?" The camera lingers on the subtle tremor of his lips, the flinch of his shoulders, the widening of his pupils. His chest heaves, each breath feels like it might explode. Sanemi stands at the side, arms crossed. He watches silently, but the pressure of his gaze is palpable. Tanjiro glances at him, eyes sharp, jaw tight, aura lethal. Sanemi says nothing, but the camera angle shifts slightly, framing him as a looming presence over the trainees. The weight of expectation presses against Tanjiro like a physical force. His focus sharpens, but the body rebels, the drill intensifies. Abanai introduces rapid strikes, testing speed, balance, and instinct simultaneously. Tanjiro blocks, parries, pivots, but fatigue begins to show. His timing slips, his movements are ever so slightly late. One strike grazes his forearm. Pain spikes. His arm twitches. Keep moving. Don't stop. If I stop, I can't start again. Cut to Gyomei's endurance trial. The camera pulls back, showing Tanjiro dwarfed beneath the massive weighted stones. He lifts, muscles screaming, vision blurring. Sweat streams down his face. The camera lingers on every micro-movement, the quiver of his shoulders, the flex of his fingers, the tension in his jaw. His breath comes in short, uneven bursts. A fellow trainee collapses, stones slipping from their grasp. The sound echoes across the field. Tanjiro forces himself to step forward anyway. If I stop, if I falter, I'll be like them. I can't. Gyomei's voice cuts softly, almost sacred. Your body is screaming. That is expected. But your heart, what does it say? The camera moves in tight on Tanjiro's eyes. Memories collide, Nezuko smiling inside her box, Rengoku standing amid flames, blood on snow, promises whispered in desperation. His jaw tightens. My heart, it never stopped. So why is my body betraying me? Suddenly, the weight shifts. His fingers slip. Extreme close-up, knuckles white, veins straining. Black spots creep into his vision. Time slows. If I let go, it ends. The pain stops. A split second of surrender flashes across his mind. The camera cuts to a side angle, his entire body quivering under the weight, trembling like a leaf in a storm. Then fear surges, not fear of pain, but fear of giving up. Eyes snapping open, he corrects his stance. Muscles scream. A broken, rasping sound escapes his throat, half gasp, half sob. He holds. Gyomei watches, tears falling, voice gentle. Good, he says quietly. The camera holds the frame, emphasizing the exhaustion etched into every line of Tanjiro's body. Exercise ends. Tanjiro's legs refuse to carry him. He collapses forward, catching himself with hands dug into dirt. Breathing comes in harsh, uneven bursts. The camera moves around him, capturing the distant blur of the world, ears ringing, vision swimming. Mitsuri rushes to his side, kneeling, hand on his shoulder. Tanjiro, she says urgently. He tries to focus. I'm okay, he whispers, voice raw, weak. The camera lingers on the subtle quiver in his lips, the sweat streaked across his face, the faint tremor of his fingers digging into the dirt. Sanemi steps forward. Low-angle camera frames him above Tanjiro. This is where people break, he says softly. Not because they are weak, but because they push past the moment their mind can guide their body. Tanjiro digs fingers deeper into the soil. I'm still in control, right? I can't fall now. Fear and determination war inside him. Nearby, a trainee finally collapses fully, sobbing uncontrollably, weapon slipping from his grasp. The camera lingers raw and unflinching. Tanjiro hears it, feels the echo inside his chest. That could be me, one misstep away. Sunsets, painting the sky in burning orange and crimson. Tanjiro sits alone at the field's edge. Camera focuses tightly on his hands, shaking slightly, veins pronounced, skin raw. If I keep going, I may lose part of myself. His chest heaves. But if I stop, everyone else keeps fighting alone. Cut to the Infinity Castle. Muzan stands in the shadows, watching silently. Eyes half-lidded, expression serene. Good, he murmurs. They've reached the point where desperation turns into determination. That's when mistakes are born. Faint, imperceptible smile, return to Tanjiro. He plants his feet. Every movement deliberate, slow, painful. Muscle screaming. The camera cuts to a close-up on his eyes, tired, strained, but burning with stubbornness. "I'm still here," he whispers. Voice low, raw, almost a vow. The wind whistles across the field, carrying the weight of unyielding resolve. The morning mist wrapped around the training grounds like a living veil, curling over logs, stones, and scattered wooden swords, softening every edge and turning the familiar into something alien, dangerous, and heavy with silence. The camera drifted low across the dirt, lingering on every small detail: splintered wood, deep boot prints pressed unevenly, frayed cloth clinging to mud, faint streaks of dew sliding down the surfaces of scarred logs, and the subtle shiver of leaves rustling in a wind that barely existed. Each sound, no matter how small, seemed amplified: the tap of boots, the scrape of wood against dirt, the distant caw of a crow echoing like thunder. Tanjiro knelt at the far edge of the field, trembling violently, shoulders tight, body screaming from fatigue, hands veined and shaking as he rewrapped the cloth around his forearms. His knuckles were white, sweat streaked down his face, dripping into his eyes and blurring his vision. Jaw clenched, lips quivering, pupils wide, every fiber of him alive with pain and determination. Every nerve screamed. Every muscle trembled. "If I stop, I can't get back up. I have to move. I must endure. I cannot give in." He rose slowly, legs wobbling, each step sending sharp pain through his calves, thighs, and spine. Sweat poured down his face and soaked his uniform. Pain reminded him he was alive, pain reminded him he had to continue. The air was thick and heavy, almost crushing, each breath ragged, chest rising and falling in uneven gasps. Then a sharp voice cut through the mist. "Line up!" Abanai emerged, moving with perfect precision, steps measured, shoulders squared, gaze slicing across the field with deadly accuracy. "No excuses. Start!" The trainees leapt into action immediately. The clash of wooden swords filled the air with loud, harsh echoes. Thuds bounced off logs. Boots pounded against the dirt in unrelenting rhythm. Tanjiro moved with them, blocked, pivoted, parried, muscles trembling violently, sweat dripping into his eyes, vision swimming, breath short and ragged. His toe slipped slightly in the dirt. Abanai's gaze locked on him like a blade. "You moved after your mind," he said quietly. "Again." Tanjiro repeated the block, legs shaking, chest heaving, every nerve screaming. Why did it feel harder today? He had done this hundreds of times. Sanemi stood nearby, looming, arms crossed, glare sharp and unblinking, presence heavy, pressing against Tanjiro's shoulders like a physical weight, tightening muscles involuntarily. Abanai increased the speed. Strikes came faster, sharper, testing every ounce of reflex, balance, and instinct. Tanjiro blocked, pivoted, countered, but fatigue was written all over him. Pain blossomed along his arms, shoulders, and spine, sweat poured down, jaw clenched, breath ragged. He could not falter. He could not hesitate. Then Gyomei's endurance trial came into view. The massive weighted stone rested before him like a mountain. Tanjiro gripped it, arms trembling violently, muscles screaming, legs quivering beneath the crushing weight. One misstep and it could all collapse. Another trainee nearby fell to the ground with a gasp, sobbing from the strain. Step by agonizing step, Tanjiro forced his legs to move. If he stopped, he failed. He could not fail. Gyomei's calm, sacred voice resonated in his ears. "Your body screams. That is expected. But your heart, what does it say?" Memories flashed across his mind: Nezuko smiling inside her box, Rengoku standing amid flames, snow tinged red with blood, whispered promises. Jaw tightened, determination burning in his chest. He could not let his heart falter. The stone tilted dangerously. Fingers slipped. Knuckles white, veins bulging. Black spots crept into his vision. Time slowed. If he let go, everything ended. Pain might stop, but everything else ended too. Eyes squeezed shut, trembling, panic rising, not fear of pain, but fear of surrender. Eyes snapping open, he steadied the stone, muscles screaming, a broken gasp escaping him, half sob, half growl. Gyomei watched silently, tears streaking his cheeks, pride and sorrow written clearly on his face. "Good," he whispered. Camera panned across the field. Trainees staggered, barely holding the weight. Mitsuri knelt beside one, hand steady, voice soft, ready to stabilize. Sanemi paced, glare sharp, evaluating every twitch of muscle. Tanjiro focused every fiber of his being, vision swimming, sweat soaking his uniform and hands. He must keep moving. He could not break. Not now. Sunlight pierced the mist, slicing through in sharp beams, casting long, shifting shadows across the trembling ground. His arms shook violently, fingers trembling on the stone, muscles screaming, veins pronounced. He was still here. He could do this. He must. A sudden shout broke the silence. Another trainee collapsed, Mitsuri rushing to stabilize him, voice gentle but firm. Camera cut to Tanjiro, chest heaving violently, eyes wide, burning with determination. That could be me, he thought. I cannot allow it. Abanai stepped closer, striking rhythmically against Tanjiro's sword, testing reflex, precision, and endurance. Close up on his sweat-glimmering eyes, pupils dilated, chest heaving, jaw tight, teeth clenched. Every strike, every step, he could not hesitate. Not even once. Mist swirled around him, thick and suffocating, making every movement feel heavier, slower. Camera panned from his trembling hands to his face, capturing every flicker of doubt, every quiver of pain, every micro-expression of resolve, every pulse of his racing heart. The stone tilted again. Fingers slipped slightly. Knuckles white. Veins bulging. Breath caught. Heart pounding. Vision blurred. I cannot fail. I cannot. I must endure. I will endure. With a final agonizing surge, Tanjiro steadied the stone completely, muscles burning, chest heaving, legs trembling, teeth clenched. The weight settled safely to the ground. Legs collapsed beneath him. Broken, exhausted, he gasped, sweat and tears mingling, dripping into the dirt. Mitsuri knelt beside him, hand steady on his shoulder, voice soft, "You did it." Tanjiro. He nodded weakly, barely lifting his head, eyes glistening with fatigue, relief, and unbroken determination. Wide shot, the field, mist curling, sunlight piercing the haze, long shadows stretching across the dirt, Tanjiro small beneath the lingering weight of exhaustion, chest rising and falling rapidly. Voiceover, faint, barely audible, "I'm still here. I cannot fall, not yet. I must keep moving." The weight of exhaustion pressed down on Tanjiro like a physical force as he collapsed to his knees beside the massive stone he had just steadied, sweat dripping from every pore, running into his eyes, stinging and blurring his vision. Every muscle ached, every nerve screamed, chest rising and falling violently as he tried to catch his breath. His legs trembled uncontrollably beneath him, threatening to give way, and even his arms quivered despite having completed the impossible task. Around him, the mist swirled thickly, curling over logs and stones, carrying the faint, cold whisper of wind and the rustle of leaves. Trainees groaned and fell around him, some barely able to hold their wooden swords, others collapsing entirely under the strain, their exhaustion a mirror of his own. Mitsuri moved gracefully among them, hands steady, voice gentle, stabilizing those who faltered, the soft chime of her bracelets faint against the oppressive silence. Tanjiro's gaze flicked toward her, chest heaving, jaw tight, eyes burning. I cannot collapse. That could be me. I cannot allow it. I must keep going. Sanemi's silhouette loomed, arms crossed, expression unflinching, presence oppressive, pressing down on Tanjiro's spirit like a heavy stone. This is where most break, he said quietly, voice calm but full of weight, not because they are weak, but because they reach the point where mind and body are no longer aligned. Tanjiro clenched his teeth, gripping the dirt beneath him with shaking fingers, forcing his legs to hold him upright despite the trembling, pain-filled muscles. Abanai approached, sword raised, striking rhythmically against Tanjiro's blade to test reflex, endurance, and precision. Each strike echoed sharply through the mist, each collision a brutal reminder of his limits. Close-up on Tanjiro's face revealed sweat glistening on furrowed brows, pupils wide and darting, jaw tight, teeth clenched. His chest heaved violently. Every strike, every step. I cannot hesitate. I cannot falter, not even once. The mist thickened, wrapping around him like a living curtain, obscuring the edges of the field, making every movement feel heavier, slower, suffocating. Sunlight pierced the haze in sharp beams, casting long, twisting shadows over the dirt, over the trembling figures of his fellow trainees. Tanjiro's arms shook violently, fingers gripping tightly, muscles screaming, veins pronounced beneath his skin. The weight of every choice, every second, pressed down like a physical force. Panic flared as the stone he had stabilized shifted slightly. Extreme close-up, knuckles white, veins bulging, sweat dripping into his eyes, black spots crawling across his vision. Time seemed to slow, stretching each moment into an eternity. If I let go, if I fail, everything ends, but I cannot. I must endure. I will endure. He braced himself, forcing the stone to stay steady despite every trembling limb, a broken gasp escaping him, half sob, half growl, sweat and tears mingling on his face. I watched silently, tears streaming down his own cheeks, pride and sorrow written clearly in his solemn gaze. Wide-shot, trainees staggered and collapsed around him, Mitsuri steadying those she could reach, Sanemi pacing, eyes sharp, evaluating every twitch of muscle and drop of sweat. Tanjiro forced every fiber of his being to focus, nerves screaming, breath ragged, vision swimming. He could not break. Not now. Not ever. Abanai stepped closer, moving with precise, deliberate strikes against Tanjiro's sword, forcing instantaneous reactions, his eyes unyielding, measuring the limits of Tanjiro's reflexes. Close up on Tanjiro, pupils dilated, sweat dripping, chest heaving violently, jaw tight, teeth clenched, muscles trembling uncontrollably. Every strike was a challenge, a test of mind and body. Every movement had to be perfect. Failure was impossible. Mist swirled thicker, curling around him like invisible hands, restricting, suffocating, but he refused to yield. Each heartbeat, each breath, each tremor was a battle. I cannot falter. I will not. I must endure. I must survive. The stone shifted again. Fingers slipped. Knuckles white, veins pronounced. Heart hammering, vision blurred. Tanjiro's mind screamed with determination, desperation, fear. I cannot fail. I will not fail. I cannot collapse now, not ever. With every ounce of remaining strength, he steadied the stone, arms shaking violently, muscles burning, legs trembling. Chest heaving, teeth clenched so tight it hurt, he held it. The weight finally settled. His legs gave way beneath him, collapsing to the ground. Broken, gasping, drenched in sweat and tears, he lay on the dirt, trembling. Mitsuri knelt beside him, hand steady on his shoulder, voice soft, "You did it." Tanjiro. He nodded weakly, barely lifting his head, eyes glistening with relief, fatigue, and unbroken determination. Wide shot of the field, mist curling, sunlight slicing through the haze, long shadows stretching across the ground, Tanjiro small, yet unbowed, chest rising and falling rapidly, every fiber of him spent but resolute. Voiceover faint, barely audible, "I'm still here. I cannot fall, not yet. I must keep moving." Cut to Infinity Castle. Muzan watches silently, expression calm, eyes half-lidded, lips curved in a faint, almost imperceptible smile. "Good," he murmurs, voice smooth, cold. They've reached the point where desperation turns into determination. That is when mistakes are born. Fade to black.